The train hissed as it slowed, metal wheels screeching against the rails, and Eleanor Hayes gripped her small leather suitcase with both hands. This was it. The end of everything she had known, and the beginning of something she had only imagined through letters written in careful ink. She had crossed an ocean, left behind a life of quiet struggle, and followed a promise that now felt fragile as glass. A husband, a home, a future. That was what the letters had said. She stepped down onto the wooden platform of a dusty western town, the sun harsh and unfamiliar. People moved around her with purpose, boots crunching on gravel, voices sharp and fast. Eleanor searched the crowd, heart racing, eyes scanning every face for the man she had memorized in her mind. Samuel Carter, rancher, widower, a man who wanted a wife to help him build a family and a life. But minutes passed, then more. No one approached her. No one said her name. Finally, an older station attendant looked at her standing alone and asked gently, "You waiting on someone, miss?" "Yes," Eleanor said, forcing a smile. "My husband." The man hesitated, his expression shifting in a way that made her stomach tighten. "You best come with me." The ride to the ranch was silent except for the creak of the wagon and the wind moving through dry grass. Eleanor's thoughts spiraled, every possibility crashing into the next. Maybe Samuel had been delayed. Maybe he was shy. Maybe. The wagon stopped. Before her stood a weathered farmhouse, worn but standing, surrounded by open land and a sagging fence. And on the porch, 7 children. 7. They stood in a loose line, ranging from a boy who couldn't have been more than 12 to a little girl clinging to the hem of a dress much too big for her. Their faces were thin, eyes cautious, guarded, curious. No man stood with them. The oldest boy stepped forward. "Are you the new mama?" Eleanor felt the world tilt. I'm Eleanor," she said slowly. "I came to see Samuel Carter." The children exchanged glances. The station attendant cleared his throat. "Samuel passed 3 months ago, miss. Fever took him. The letters must have crossed the ocean before he fell ill." The words landed like stones. Gone. The man she had promised herself to. The reason she had come. The future she had pictured. Eleanor's knees nearly buckled. She looked at the children again, their hope dimming in real time, as if they had already learned not to expect good news. The little girl stepped forward. "Are you going to leave too?" That single sentence cut deeper than any other truth. Eleanor could have turned around. She had every right. She owed no one here anything. She could go back to town, find work, maybe scrape together enough to return home someday. But as she looked at those 7 faces, something inside her shifted. Slowly, she set her suitcase down. "I don't know what's going to happen," she said honestly, "but I won't leave tonight." That night turned into a week. The house was colder than Eleanor had imagined. Meals were thin, routines chaotic. The children were wary, polite but distant, as if kindness were something that vanished without warning. They did chores without complaint, moved like adults trapped in small bodies. There was no laughter. Eleanor learned quickly. She mended torn clothes, cooked with what little was left, and cleaned rooms that hadn't been truly cared for since before Samuel died. She listened more than she spoke. She learned names, personalities, fears. Thomas, the eldest, carried guilt like a second spine. Mary tried to mother everyone but herself. The twins barely spoke. And little Clara woke crying every night, calling for someone she barely remembered. Eleanor began waking before dawn and sleeping long after the children had gone quiet. Her hands cracked, her back ached, and doubt crept in during the silent hours. She was not their mother. She was not even meant to be here. But one evening, after a particularly long day, she heard laughter. Soft, uncertain, real. She stood in the doorway and watched as the children played a simple game by candlelight, something Eleanor had taught them without thinking. When they noticed her watching, they froze. "You can keep playing," she said. Thomas nodded. "Stay." She did. Weeks passed. Eleanor wrote to the local pastor, asking for guidance. He came once, saw the home, and quietly arranged help where he could. Neighbors began to notice. Some offered food. Some offered judgment. "You don't have to raise them," one woman said flatly. "They'll be sent away eventually." Eleanor smiled politely and kept stirring the pot. Winter came early and hard. The roof leaked. One child fell ill. Eleanor sat by the bed for 3 nights straight, refusing to sleep, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken since girlhood. When the fever broke, Mary hugged her without thinking. That was the first time. The children began calling her Miss Eleanor, then simply Ma, without ceremony, without asking. It slipped out naturally, like something that had been waiting. One night, Thomas stood at the door after the others had gone to bed. "You didn't have to stay," he said quietly. "You still don't." Eleanor knelt so they were eye to eye. "I know. Why did you?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because families aren't always found the way we expect." Years passed. The ranch improved. Eleanor learned the land, learned business, learned strength she hadn't known she possessed. The children grew taller, louder, braver. Laughter filled the house now. Arguments too. Life, in all its noise and mess. Eleanor never remarried. She didn't need to. At the edge of the property stood 7 graves one day in the future, each visited by a grown child who spoke of a woman who chose them when she had every reason not to. Not a mail-order bride, not a replacement, but the mother they wished for, and the mother who wished for them too.